I get to walk right into your life and see where you work, see where you spend 65% of your waking hours. And I get to just check in, flying off the cuff, building those relationships with people and looking for the opportunities to care for them.
Hello and welcome. Joining us today is U.S. Army and Corporate Chaplain Anthony Goodwin, here to share his experience in caring for the spiritual, psychological, and social health of business leaders and soldiers alike. Anthony, how are you doing today?
Very well, Brett. How about yourself?
Doing well, thank you. So, can you give us an overview of what you do both in the Army and corporate world?
Yeah, actually, at my kids' career day, I would at the table as they come to me, I'd be like, oh yeah, I'm like a professional best friend. And really drill down, that's a lot of what it is. It's building that caring relationship with people, showing them that you're there as a resource, that you can pray with them, listen to them, cry with them, celebrate with them as well. So it's just a lot of trust building. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'm like a glorified best friend for people.
So what started you down that road?
God and a lot of closed doors in my life. So roll the clock back to 2018. Yeah, around 2018, me and my wife just felt like Central California had tapped itself out for us and all the opportunities we had. We had 2 kids at the time. And so God started to stir something in us to go somewhere different where there'd be more promise, hope, future, and purpose. So collectively, we felt like Austin, Texas would be that place for us. Texas did not feel like us. We do not feel like cowboys. Like this, didn't make much sense on the surface, but visited, fell in love, and saw all of the opportunity to care for people out here in this area. And so we moved out here without the promise of any kind of role. I was working in churches prior to this season. And kind of through LinkedIn and God and algorithms, found chaplaincy. It more so found me than I found it. And I was unsure and uncertain of what that would look like. I had gotten my master's in divinity and theology, had been in ministry since 2010. So almost a decade in, and then kind of made this weird pivot into chaplaincy. It started out part-time, and I was thinking I would just do it until some church role job presented itself. But again, after a lot of doors closing, I realized, actually everything about being a chaplain is exactly what I loved most about working in churches. There's a lot of fun, creative stuff that you can do. You can approach Easter in this way, but at the end of the day, a lot of what you do is probably like 70% weekend event spiritual management. You're making sure the doors open at the right time, the worship leader's up there at this time. Did we put out the right announcement for the thing that's happening in 6 weeks? Oh no, we didn't. Okay, we got to make sure to put that in the bulletin for next week. Oh, the printer's down. Okay, let's go out of it's that every single week. And the thing that I love most was getting to just walk up to a stranger and just be like, hey, what brings you here today? What's life look like for you? How long have you lived here? Can I help you get connected with anything? Oh, you're interested in that? Okay, let me get you over talking to this person. So I went from doing that with 30% of my time in the church world to now it's what I do every single day, whether it's in the office with somebody, it's on the dock with freight handlers, or it's during PT with some soldiers. I'm getting to do that all the time. So yeah, little window into that.
So what made the bridge into Army life?
One part need, financially, health care wise, but that was actually what kind of triggered the idea of chaplaincy first. When I was back in that 2018 time period, an Army chaplain recruiter reached out to me, saw my name on the church website. Hey, pastor, you ever think about serving God and country before? And I said, nope. But, I like to connect. So I was like, but tell me about it. So I listened to it with open ears and open heart, thought, nah, not for me, but I appreciate it. And so that was in 18. And then we moved here in late 19. And then by, I don't know, January, February, March of 2020, I had started the process to become an Army Reserve chaplain, and got that commission in November of 2020. And I've loved it. like I said, just the mission field, the opportunity, right? The access to be there for those types of people, those soldiers, both local and far away. I'm getting to meet and care. And then it also helps on the corporate chaplain side because there are many veterans that I meet. And the moment, you say that you're an Army chaplain, like it just brings up that level of credibility and trust with a lot of people. So yeah, again, just another God thing to open a door that I wasn't necessarily looking to get into, but have absolutely loved it. Almost 4 years now.
And it's interesting. You say you started in November of 2020. How was that with the rise of COVID, and like how did that affect your entrance into all this?
Oh, it's so weird, Brett. So I have no prior service. I came in straight in as an officer, which is already, whatever weird experience for people. But then being a chaplain is like another layer level of like weirdness. So a great resource and voice that I tapped into from afar. He's got a big YouTube channel. He's called The Tattooed Chap. And so I started just like eating up his videos for like, how do I do this? Because that first unit you get assigned to, it's weird for everybody, one, coming in if you don't have a supervisory chaplain to connect with, but it was also COVID. So November commissioned, didn't have drill in December. First drill wasn't until January of 21, and that one was remote. So I logged into a computer just like this. I put on the whole uniform because I had no idea what was going on. Nobody was like, oh, we don't turn our cameras on and we just listen to the presenter all weekend. But that's what we did. So that was January was like that. February was like that. And my first in-person battle assembly wasn't until March of 2021. And I just showed up. People started saluting. They were like, hello, hi, yes, I am a chaplain. Hi. And yeah, it was just went running from there. But the first 2 months were weird. That's also when the Texas freeze happened. I think was that like January of 21. So some people were without power, and I was in a cold closet just listening to briefs that I had no idea what was going on. But much better off now. I've been to Bullock, been with the unit for a minute. So yeah, a lot different now.
Man, I can only imagine. Like, it's weird enough, like you said, it's weird enough going from civilian to military, which I have shared and can share with you. And it's also, from what I hear, weird going from civilian to military in charge of other people. So like becoming an officer, all of a sudden you're someone's boss. And then on top of that, to do that as a chaplain, like, which is kind of, it's its own, you're an officer, but it's kind of in its own sphere. So you can't really look around at your peers saying, okay, well, that officer's doing that, that's what I do. It's like, nope, this is, and most chaplains, from what I see, they're like one per unit. So there's not really anyone around you to look around as a model.
Yep.
And then to do that right in the middle of COVID, where you're learning how to do things, but nothing around you is normal.
Yeah.
So you don't even know what normal is. And like
Yep.
you started in, and then it wasn't until later that you started even getting kind of a semblance of what other people knew as normal. And by then it wasn't even normal for you. So like that is just, I imagine it was a huge situation to try to navigate that.
Kind of, sort of. It's your, it just becomes your reality. Like you don't know anything else. So like sometimes I'll think about like, oh, I wonder if it's always been like this or not. But whether or not it was something different, it just is what it is now. So I just figure it out. But yeah, chaplains uniquely. So we have rank, but we don't have any actual command authority. So I'm not technically anyone's boss. Like maybe on our team, we'll have a religious affairs specialist, but other than that, or a chaplain candidate. But anyone else, they can salute me all day and call me sir. But I'm like, chaplain's good. Chaplain's good.
So what does that even kind of look like as a chaplain? Like I like to have the rank, but not really any kind of authority with that. Like what does that look like? Do you know of any other reasoning behind that? What are your thoughts?
So I think it has a lot to do with our confidentiality, right? Like there's a lot of things that we have military side, 100% confidentiality. You could tell me anything and everything, intentioned, planned, thought, wished, done, like any of it, I can't tell anybody. We are strictly held to that. And then on the civilian side, in the corporate chaplain world, there, I have 100% up to intention to harm yourself or harm someone else. So I think having like that kind of relationship with everybody, you want to like protect that. And I think if you have like command authority over people, that can jeopardize that. That can jeopardize people wanting to open up to you, right? If they feel like you could punish them in some sort of backdoor way. Like, so yeah, we don't have any authority over everyone. It's tricky in that you're trying to always break that wall down with people to let them know, like, hey, you know, don't look at what's in the middle of my chest, the rank, as much as the cross that I wear. The cross is, to me, much more valuable, and the rank is what it is. You know, it's just a part of the career. It's not what I do it for. I do it to have the access in people's lives. And truthfully, like being a captain chaplain, you have the most experience with the regular Joes on a day-to-day basis. And the higher rank you get, the higher you're going to go, and the less that you're going to see of your everyday person, you know. So my perspective is to stay a captain as long as possible without getting in trouble, because then I get to stay right with the people, you know. It's why I'm here. I don't want to be an administrator.
Yeah. So I'd love to kind of dig a little bit further into your background with what you do. A lot is, like you said, kind of ministering, or like I introduced in the beginning, the spiritual, the psychological, the social. There's a lot of all that integrated in, as well as I'm sure other things. But I've heard it once said that people don't feel a burden to people don't feel the need to lift a weight off of other people unless they've felt it on themselves. And so I'd love to kind of dig into your past and see how has your own history kind of led you to this point.
Yeah, so I wasn't raised in a Christian home. I was raised around faith, be it this grandparent or that grandparent. And it wasn't until I was 19 that I was invited to church and stayed committed to it. And that was actually July 19th, 2008 was the day that I gave my heart to the Lord. And within about 6 or 9 months of that, I was working at the supermarket I had been at for like 3 years, and I loathed the 4-hour work shift that I had there. And then when I volunteered at the church for 8 or 12 hours, I was just like alive and excited and, you know, full of grace and mercy. And I realized just then, like, okay, you know what? I think I was supposed to be in ministry. So I started to pursue the schooling and the experiences, the internships, and all that kind of stuff. Did some church plants, some mission work. And yeah, so that's what really drove me into this whole real identity, I guess, of being a minister, right? That became my goal in like 2009, to be this source for people. And at that point, I didn't see this chaplain role as strongly, as I was just seeing like whatever I could do today to be in ministry is what I want to do. So I didn't get my first paid ministry role until 2013. And yeah, just kept pressing in. And that had many different vehicles of what it looked like from 13 to 19 when I became a chaplain, or 20. And it was worship, it was media, it was connections, it was videography and communications. But each one of those vehicles, you know, I was just like putting my hands to this instrument, for lack of a better word. But throughout each one of them, I was constantly focused on the people in front of me. Like, you know, hey, like I see you kind of do this. Do you want to do this on the worship team? Hey, I see that you're, you know, a gifted builder. Do you want to help me build up this like welcome center thing on wheels we got to move around? Like, so I constantly just had that, like, trying to access a talent, a gift that someone had in their life, and wanted to try to help use it for the kingdom. And so now, again, I get to kind of do that on a daily basis through being a chaplain, right? Just helping people. Not just, now it's not about tapping that gift or talent for the kingdom or the weekend church stuff. Now it's about like highlighting the potential and the joy and the strengths and the possible growth that could happen in their life, kind of in every area, whether that's professional or personal. I'm there to help people out with that. So yeah, I think that kind of answers the question a little bit. I mean, I wasn't, too long in the workforce and realized chaplains are needed. Like, it just kind of, again, God God shut a lot of doors that I thought I wanted to make me realize, oh no, this is what he was preparing me for.
Thank you for
Yeah.
that. How about any kind of major either mentor figures or experiences and kind of some lessons that you have pulled from that have really shaped your journey, shaped how you interact with other people in your work?
Man, I've had a few great kind of mentors and leaders throughout my life just, take me through leadership books, encourage me to go a different path. Um, yeah, from reading, having many one-on-ones, right? In many of those early days of being that intern, uh, being taken on those missions trips and being given the one-on-one leadership lessons on John C. Maxwell's 21 Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Like, all of those moments were very, very helpful in shaping me into the unique person that I feel that I am today. And I've put all of those tools under my tool belt, like my first ever ministry volunteer thing, other than, hey, go hold this sign and say hi to people. The first thing I got invited into by my friend Vince Vasquez. He was a staff member at this church, and he was like, so what do you do? Again, kind of the same things that I'm sharing with you as far as like, what do you do? Oh, let's find a way to use that in this space. He called me up into the office and he's like, so you can type? I was like, yeah, I'd been taking classes since like the second grade or something like that. And he's like, so how many words per minute? And at that point, I think I was at like 90 or 100 or something. And he's like, all right, here's what I need. And he like orders this little foot pedal. Maybe Amazon was around then. I don't know. I'm sure it was. Got a little foot pedal to control through USB an audio clip of the pastor at the time. He's had messages since like the 80s or whatever. So they had those on a digital file. I would play, record, fast forward, and I would begin typing out the messages. So in my like first year of being a Christian, I go from 1 to 2 messages a week to those 1 or 2 live messages to now I'm listening to another 2 or 3 a week from past recordings of his, and I'm typing these things out ultimately so that those digital messages could become a book that it would one day get published. I was reaping the benefit of like being exposed to a lot of teaching. So like that was pretty huge for me to get ingrained in the gospel, ingrained in, other people in ministry, history of messages. But then, yeah, just being able to kind of tap into the like figuring out what your thing is and then finding out how we can, help you walk with Jesus in the middle of it too, which is like a weird little personal, mission vision that I have is to help people pursue Jesus right where they're at, right? You don't just need to be pursuing Jesus when you're in the small group or when you're sitting in the pew. Like, how can you make your regular work life pattern help you to follow Jesus? So, yeah.
And so let's circle back to Maxwell's book. What would you say are be the major lesson or 1 or 2 of the major lessons that you pulled from that book that you've kind of kept with you?
Man, I don't know which one's like healthy to reflect on. The law of the lid is always one that stuck out, right? It was the idea of like if you're under a leader that is a 8, you're going to be capped out at that. Like you're only going to be able to raise up so much. So yeah, I don't know if that's the most like healthy to like reflect on, and feels like narcissistic to even think of that one, because then you're like, is my leader enough? I need a better leader. Like, that's a silly one.
I
But I
think
can't.
I think it's something that a lot of people need to understand, though, is that I mean, even Yeshua talked about you cannot rise higher than your teacher,
Mhm.
and I think part of that is a call to pursue the highest teacher.
Amen to that.
And I think there's a certain limiting factor that a lot of people have when they limit themselves to um, merely human teachers or human teachers that perhaps aren't fully where they want to go or where they feel called to go, and they feel this pressure to, well, that's arrogant of me to pursue that, so because I need to be this. And especially in certain religious cultures, there's kind of a valuing of the small. You need to make yourself small
Mhm.
in order to be humble or something. But I think there's definitely a value to that especially people who have greatness in them, which I believe is most, if not everyone, that to be freed to pursue the highest teacher and to learn from that teacher in a way that allows you to kind of be free of all the other teachers and to run
Yeah.
with them.
Yeah.
I
And
don't think it's unhealthy at all.
I think another side, as you're speaking, I was just thinking that like it's also important to, as a leader, whatever, if you are the six, right? And you have this great up and coming person that you're helping, be able to realize like, man, they've got even greater potential than me, and try to help them along their journey and not be a limit to them in a negative way, right? Whether that's for your own pride or selfishness or whatever like that. Like
It's
if you see the potential, let them go to where they need to go to keep
actually,
on growing.
It's actually a really great point, and it's something I actually wrote a blog about that, where I kind of changed it from teacher to about healers, and those who I would say any, whether you're a coach or a teacher or a healer or a mentor, all of these things that are, the goal is to help other people grow. I think it's really kind of a self-reflection piece for them as well, to say this: if I am setting myself up to be a leader for this person, a healer for this person, all of that, then they will, and they submit to that, then they are going to be limited by my level.
Yeah.
And that means either two things, well, three things. One, not being desirable. One, where you like kind of just keep people under you, and that's what kind of helps you stay uh, more superior or whatever. And that's not
Yeah.
really a healthy motive. But then
Yeah.
the other two that are more healthy is, one, you need to get really good at referring.
Mhm.
Like, you need to know people who have higher levels in these areas, perhaps that your mentee is trying to reach, and refer them to those people in those areas at least. But the other part, and I take this as even the higher challenge, is you need to always be growing,
Yep.
because you might be at a 6 now and you realize that every person that you lead is going to be limited to 6.
Yep.
You need to constantly pursuing higher so that you can help those other people. And that, again, there's a mentality where people tend to be like, well, any kind of investment in myself, anything that's trying to like raise my level is selfish, and I shouldn't do that. It's conceited. It's all of
Yeah.
it. But in order to help other people, you have to set yourself in a good position to do so, and you have to lift yourself up in that way of like raising your level to be able to help them raise their level. So
Yeah.
I think it's a great lesson. Have you seen that apply at all in your chaplain career?
Um, hmm. Personally, I don't think within my own career, but like in the people that I serve, right? Like I encourage people to um take care and look out for themselves, right? Because at the end of the day, no one's going to look out for us more than ourselves. Even the best managers, supervisors, they're going to want to help if they're good, but they can only help so much sometimes, because they're given certain limits on what they can do or what they can move around or what they can hand off to you. So if you feel like you need that new challenge or that new lid to be under, then yeah, I encourage him like, man, then go see what's out there. You never know.
So, you mentioned a few other possible significant events that happened in your life that kind of have shaped where you are today. Is there anything else that comes to mind with that?
Yeah, heaps of odd things. So things that I tap into on a daily basis to like help connect and care with people is sports teams, watching anime, talking about movies, um, laughing about podcasts, like every one of those things that for, the first 25 years of my life or whatever, I thought like I am uh, a jack of all trades, but a master of none. Right. And I saw that as like a weakness. I thought my greatest quality was being an encourager. Like I'm not singularly gifted at one thing. I've given you the list of, different positions that I've held, and each one requires a different little skill set that I've either naturally had and probably not naturally had to work a lot hard at any one of them, but never felt like I flourished at any one individual thing. So whether it was in high school learning guitar to get some girls to look at me, or it was, playing sports through junior college, like I did all of those things singularly. I would focus on them and try to get as good as I could at them. And then, after getting saved, it's like I've got a bunch of weird talents, even dance. I haven't even mentioned that one. Like I also danced in ministry and hip hop and taught kids and stuff. But all of that, it felt like such a weird hodgepodge. And so then I would get the question as I'm going to school and doing these internships. So what kind of pastor you want to be? You want to be like a youth pastor? You want to be college pastor? You want to be a lead pastor? I was like, I don't know, man. Like I just like people. And we never got like a good, like, okay, then let's do this with you. This is what this obviously means. So just like all of those experiences God has taken and used in today. Every day I'm tapping into one of those weird kind of interests or niches that I have in my life. And I'm able to use them, yeah, on a daily basis. And so I've been in the corporate chaplain world for 4.5 years now. I started that January 2020, and then military side's coming up on 4. So yeah, again, just all of it comes together, and it has its purpose and its use and its function. Which, Brett, fun fact, did you know that quote I shared with you is not the whole quote? Jack of all trades, but a master of none.
I've heard a couple different versions of it, but please share.
Jack of all trades, but a master of none, but better than a master of one. So for probably 30 years, as a 5-year-old, I was quoting that. No, but for the first part of my life, I only knew the first part, jack of all trades, but a master of none. And, I took that as like self-inflicting and like, you suck. But then I think only in the past like 2 years, I've learned the second half of the quote, jack of all trades, but master of none, but better than a master of one. Because if you are just whatever, a gifted speaker, you might not have the ability to just have conversations one-on-one with people. If you are just the best worship leader there ever was, cool, but maybe you're not good at raising other people up and giving them opportunities, like, whatever. So yeah, I've learned to enjoy my quirks and weird interests, because now they like, I've found a good purpose for them, right? It's the opportunity to create that relationship, connection, trust with a person, and then be able to talk to them about who I love and follow most every single day of my life.
So I'm familiar with the military chaplain side of things, obviously veteran myself, so I've seen that. But I'm not familiar with corporate chaplain. What does that look like on a daily basis?
I tell my fellow Army chaplains it's pretty much the same thing, only I don't have a chapel service to invite you to at the end of the week. And we're also not doing any physical training together. But it's the same sort of like motor pool ministry where I'm walking up and down the cubicles. I'm walking up and down the dock where, the truckers are bringing all the load of stuff that needs to be delivered in the city. I'm walking up and down the job site of the iron company. I'm walking in and out of the furniture store and, just checking out I get to walk right into your life and see where you work and see where you spend, 65% of your waking hours. And I get to just check in and see how your life's going. So I'm currently contracted with like 8 or 9 companies in Austin. I drive as far as like 45 minutes away from my house south to like 30 minutes west or whatever. And I just cover this footprint and I walk into these businesses and these companies and I try to be really intentional about the conversations that I'm having with people. It's, hey, how was your weekend? What's going on? And I hear the little like, oh, my parents were in town. Oh, no way. Where are your parents from? And just all these little things start to lead to like new little bits of information about a person to be able to build that caring relationship. It's finding out their birthdays, wishing them a happy birthday. I have like the weird knack and ability to like almost the moment I see someone, I can do the rewind in my mind to like, oh yeah, that was last summer that I was talking to them about blah. And I'll be like, hey, it's been like a year since event, right? How are things going since that? So I'm just doing that every single day. It's not like I make a script. This is who's going to be there, and this is what I'm going to say to them. It's just all flying off the cuff and building those relationships with people and looking for the opportunities to care for them. Because at first they're like, yeah, what do I need a chaplain for? Like that's weird. And I'm like, I get it. Maybe you have a great spouse, a great friend, a great mentor that like you share everything with. Good. Please keep going to them. But if you don't, or you feel like there's something you need to like interface before going to them, please utilize me. I'm here, I'm available. We have 24/7 availability, 100% confidentiality, and our caring resource too, goes past just themselves. So if you were an employee, Brett, that I served, I would let you know, like, hey, if you've got a family member, someone at home that needs someone to talk to, do not hesitate to give them my information. I'm here for them.
That skill that you mentioned of being able to see someone and remember everything that you talked about and all that, like I think there'd just be so many people if you could bottle and sell that, you'd be a rich man. It would be very helpful, especially in any kind of leadership or any kind of social engagement type of work. But
I credit it to my grandma encouraging me to do puzzles. Just a weird, like, I don't know, somewhere in that memorization as a young kid. Yeah. And then with rap lyrics. Anyways, I digress.
But I'm really glad to hear that those companies are investing in someone like yourself to go through and make the connection and make it more personal, make it more provide a resource that is through the vein of relationship for those people, because there's a lot of people who are alone, especially in our society. Yeah. There's a lot of people who are just cut off from the social circle, the support system that they would need. And I'm glad to hear that they have someone like you walking through and asking questions.
I appreciate it. I think it's a reflection on all the owners too, because like they have the heart to be this for their people, but sometimes the teams get too big or there's too many like politics and things to kind of jump over. So to have like a dedicated, almost outside of the organization person, but still kind of in, really helps to kind of try to build that trust and transparency with people, because there's a lot of that at the beginning too. Like, oh, HR, yeah, but nothing's going to them. I promise. This is just you and me.
So you are being the sounding board and the connection piece, and perhaps even carrying the weight of a lot of these people. Who is that for you?
My wife. We do have a chaplain to the chaplains. I do have some other trusted voices of people that I go to when I need to just let out the air on things. But yep, we have that both formally built in for ourselves, but then it's also super encouraged, of course, to have that uh, for yourself. Else, we'd be pretty empty and pretty weak
Yeah.
if we didn't have that for ourselves.
You can't pour from an empty bucket.
Yes, sir.
So on that note, I'm glad to hear that you have both official and unofficial ways of connecting with people for your needs as well, because it's really important for people who are pouring out to be able to turn to someone for their own needs. What are some of the ways that you take care of your own soul, like your own psyche, and like you are constantly pouring out? And we just talked a little bit about the people that are there for you when you need, but what do you do to keep your tank full as you're pouring out for all these other people?
So one thing I started doing probably like 5 or 6 years ago was I had this weird kind of like balance of pressure of like whenever I would go to the scripture, I was like, okay, this devotional I got to lead, this message I've got to deliver. Okay, this new thing we're going to present. So let's find, some scriptural references to drive that one home. And I constantly found myself, like so many people, going to um, seminary, trying to balance, like, okay, how much of this is my like devotional approach to my relationship with God and my own health, and what is this like scholastic purposes. So about 5 or 6 years ago, I was able to finally kind of start to delineate, like, okay, this time is like strictly for me. I'm not doing this for any other kind of work purpose or mission purpose. This is just for my own sake. So yeah, 5 or 6 years ago, started to listen to the Bible through a year. And so I was really intentional when I would do that. And when I would do Devos, that whatever I'm reading or listening to right now, I'm not going to share with anybody else later today. And it wasn't from trying to like be selfish. It was trying to like make sure this is for my tank. And then I'll respond to whatever it is that they are asking for, right? And not being like, okay, this is the word that I'm going to pitch to everybody all day. Like, no, this one was specifically for me. So that's one big way. I'm on like year, like I said, 5 or 6 of doing the Bible in a year through the Bible app on my phone. Um, Also being intentional about having some groups that I meet with just to like talk about life, talk about what we got going on. That's helped me maintain kind of my own balance and well-being. Uh, Good relationship with my wife, my kids, prioritizing that, um, and being, maybe not every chaplain's like this, but I'm a chaplain who's not on staff at a church. There are many that are, right? They do a little bit of both. So I don't innately have in that like church community or that spiritual community all the time around. So that's something over the past 2 years I've been really intentional to try to like develop and build up and lean in, um, having that. And then when I'm not doing those things, I'm playing video games as well. Video games has been a constant for me to just be able to turn the brain off, be brain dead, and just focus on this 10-minute competition with this junior higher across the country or whatever, just try to win in that moment. But yeah, that's mostly, and then I laugh at episodes of The Office every day. I'll watch good old Michael Scott doing some silly antics, and those things keep me full of joy and peace and energy to take on a new day and new stuff, to hear what people got going on in their lives.
Awesome. I'm glad to hear you have those. So, if someone was watching this video, watching this podcast, and they perhaps are struggling in some ways, emotionally, spiritually, socially, what would you suggest as like maybe a 1, 2, 3 for them to start finding some peace and some progress like in the short term, and then perhaps we can move into how to do that in the long term.
So, strictly from my faith tradition and my approach to life and my worldview, I would say ask God for help. One, pray, because a lot of times God will surprise us. He's listening a lot more closely than we think that He is. So, ask the Lord. Two, uh, open up a Bible, whether it's your Bible or it's a web browser or whatever you got to do. You'll also be surprised. I got a crazy story probably for another time of just how even if you don't know what's in the Bible, you could find something pretty beautiful for your life and for your own peace to see how He's caring for you. And thirdly, I would find good community. I think again, ideally from my faith posture in the Christian space, so that you're encouraged and you get that third party perspective to see that maybe what you're going through isn't going to be as long as you're feeling like it is when you're in the middle of it, or the perspective of, what, other people have gotten through this and I'm going to be right here with you, brother, all the way through. Having that community is quite important to whatever we got going in life. So ask for God's help, turn to His word, because anything that He's saying, that community is saying, it should be found somewhere in that text. And then also the community, again, to kind of just have that constant support around you with whatever you're going through.
So what would you say to someone who is considering pursuing a similar career, either in the military or in the civilian world?
Reach out to another chaplain that you know, talk to them, ask them questions. Because when I started the corporate side, I had my supervisor and I had the people that I saw, and they only hired me because they thought that I would do good and I had the right background and experience. And especially coming to Austin was a good candidate for this spot. I would definitely recommend connecting with someone that's been in the role for a minute, that could give you the ins and outs, the tips, the tricks, the encouragement to hang in there, because it can be an isolating career, but you don't have to let it be that way, because we are typically, one chaplain to anywhere from 300 to 1,000 soldiers, or corporate side, you're the one chaplain to 50 to 1,000 employees, and those 1,000 employees could all be one company, or those 1,000 employees could be 9 different companies, where you've got to kind of learn little nuances. Oh, I'm on the truck yard, so we're going to talk and think like this, or I'm in the corporate office and we got to dress it up and look like this. So each one of those avenues can be so different. But as far as jumping into the career, I would 100% encourage it. If you love people, if you love meeting new people, if you love being out there, like I said, driving up and down the highway to visit, like, it's been the most fulfilling form of ministry for me to get to be a chaplain. And me 10 years ago had no idea that this existed. Had I probably would have tried to pursue it earlier. But it's definitely awesome, because then you play, kind of this in between builder to the church on a larger scale, not just your address, not just your brand. You're looking to get people connected wherever they're at, to have a good community, to have a good support system, to feel that love, not just for the hour and a half at your weekend service, but 24/7. You have a hand in how that can happen for people. I love it.
That's awesome. So long term, what are you looking at? If you had all the money and all the time in the world, where would you take this?
I would be a chaplain at Disneyland. That's it. All the Disney companies, you know what? Take me to all of them, and I will take my kids everywhere, and I will visit every single cast member and just be like, "Hey, you doing all right today? What's going on? Long shift, short shift?" Constantly caring. But I joke about, like, my future retirement plan is to be Imagineer. I have no credentials, absolutely should not be allowed to make any creative decisions for Disney products, but just that's a silly dream. But to always be a chaplain is something I'll look to do the rest of my life. I have no desire to do any other career. I shared with you too, as far as like Army chaplaincy side. I don't want to get promoted because I would love to just be able to stay boots on the ground, doing the work, not just helping others to do the work themselves. At some point, I'm sure something will happen in my life and God will turn my heart to, be like, hey, dummy, you could be a multiplier and help more people do it, the ways that you did it or whatever. So multiply in that way. But for now, my heart is not there. My heart is merely to be able to open those doors, go straight to those desks and care for those people one on one.
So you recently led a training for families on 5 love languages, and it got me thinking of what are some of the other perhaps books or resources or podcasts or channels or whatever it is that perhaps you use to help people, or maybe have helped you in your own life. What are some things that you would recommend for someone watching?
The book A Grief, Good Grief by, I want to say it's Osterberg, I think is the last name. No, Granger. Is it okay if I pull it up real quick? Distract myself. That's not it.
I found one by Westberg.
Yep.
Granger Westberg.
See? I was thinking one of those names. Anyways, re-answering the question. I would recommend Good Grief by Granger E. Westberg. It is like that thin of a book, super skinny, but it just does a really good job exposing that grief isn't necessarily a process step by step, right? Systemic like that. It is a journey. It's up, it's down, it's left, it's right. I've loved that book personally, and then have shared that many, many times with people because just about everybody that you're coming across is either losing, lost, or like about to lose somebody. So encouraging them that with a short read is always very helpful, I feel like. As far as podcasts, I'll be listening to whatever, Craig Groeschel's leadership podcast, or diving into just a good comedy one to laugh through moments of life, right? Another book that I try to put people on is The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. And so that's a really good approach to spiritual disciplines, but with the angle and understanding of like today's weights and stresses and anxieties that get put on us by culture, but always comes back to gospel responses to those things, spiritual disciplines. So that's a really good one. Let me see. I'm sure I got others, but can't think of them off the top of my head right now. Just read The Daily Stoic, and we did that one as a bigger army team. That was encouraging. Yeah, I feel like there's another one I'm leaving off my list. Atomic Habits is a really great one too. That's a popular one. Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. That's another solid one. Just all these books that give you perspective shifts to life and how you approach your daily tasks. But yeah, everyone's going to have a time or a need to read Good Grief. So I recommend that one the most.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I actually, couple notes. I actually just watched a masterclass by Jocko Willink and forget his first name, Clear, the Atomic Habits guy. So I literally watched them like last week. So it's interesting you brought both of them up.
They're hot ones. Sometimes I drop those in a conversation and people think I'm like, whoa, you're a mentalist. I'm like, no, I'm just tapped into some very common and popular leadership trends sometimes.
Yeah. And interestingly, John Mark Comer was actually my pastor when I lived in Portland. So yeah,
Nice.
so
Well,
he's
if you
a
ever
pretty
run into again, let him know I love the book.
all right. Um, all right. I'm going to go through my questions here because I know we're coming up to its end. I want to make sure we didn't miss anything. Are you currently like accepting clients, or do you work with anyone, or is there anyone like, is it corporations who would reach out to you looking to hire someone?
You know what? Yeah, we can just say like have them like reach out to me. You can have my contact details in here or something, and then I'll maybe one-on-one just share our website directly.
Okay,
So as to,
sounds good. And
yeah,
we can put your contact info in the description so people know where to go with that.
yeah, yeah.
All right. Is there anything else that it's on your heart to share that perhaps we haven't yet covered today?
Yes. So as I've shared, I've been following the Lord personally since 2008. I think I shared that. Yeah, I shared that. And through that journey from 2008 to 2013, there were ups and downs. There were a lot of like, honeymoon highs, right? But there was also some hurt and bad stuff that happened in there. And luckily, even being scathed by it, uh, personally, I somehow understood at that point that like my relationship with God was not going to be tempered by man or a singular church. And I think many people can go through things in their life and experience something terrible and attribute it to having been God abandoning them because X person or, X church. I was able to hold on ever so tightly and got, kind of hauled around everywhere about the seas for a little bit in there, was uncertain, unsure, but felt assured that God still cared, I still believed in him, and that this was still a good path. And again, it wasn't until 13 that I got that first paid ministry role that I was like, all right, there is an opportunity here to then changing jobs like 3 or 4 times, all because of like really good reasons over those next 5 years, but still feeling like I don't know what my like identity in ministry looks like. And then again, feeling like we come out to Austin, Texas on faith, but scared and uncertain and not having the job and having the 3 kids and trying to make ends meet and picking up this chaplaincy thing, sure. And then realizing, oh God, this is what you've been preparing this entire time. It's been the most awesome, fulfilling purpose thing ever for me. So my encouragement is to be whatever you've gone through in life, like don't write God off and don't write off what your experiences have been. Because I bet in some way you'll see them circle back and find their second life or second purpose for you and what you got going. So, yeah, that's, I think, the message that I try to share with people every day. And again, that you can pursue Jesus right where you're at. Whatever phase of life, there's a way to make it work where you're at. So if you need help with that, reach out. I'd love to chat it up with you, see how I can help support you.
Awesome. Thank you so much. It's been a great conversation just talking about your work in the Army, your work in the corporate world, and how you are being a resource for people who, in many cases, don't have anyone to reach out to. And I'm so happy to hear that you are out there, that companies are hiring you to be out there and to be that resource, that connection for people. It's such a crucial job. It's such an important job for people to have that person, to have someone in their life to be able to reach out to. So thank you for what you do, and
Thanks,
thank
Brian.
you for coming on with us today.
No problem. My pleasure.
you.